Welcome to Doing the Most, the series where we talk about the misadventures of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, execution strategist and serial entrepreneur. This series is here to get real about what entrepreneurial life truly looks like. We are driven, persistent, hardworking, ambitious. We are human, and these are our stories. Welcome back to Doing the Most, the misadventures of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, and today we have Christina Hawatmeh, who is an entrepreneur and the founder of Scopio. So we're going to talk about this platform, how she started it, other parts of her entrepreneurial journey. But let's start off with getting a little bit to know more about who you are, Christina. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. My parents are immigrants from Jordan. They're doctors. And I started Scopio when I was, by accident, which we'll get into, when I was doing my master's at Columbia and I was studying technology policy. At the time, I was so obsessed with how governments and people were interacting on social media, and then I fell into the image part of it, which is where the idea of Scopio came from. Then, I'm excited to tell you more about it.
Yeah, so let's go back all the way to the beginning with your parents. You said that they were doctors. What made them decide to move to the United States? Did they move here before they had you, or was it, what was going on, why they decided to come here?
Yeah, I think when you look at an entrepreneur's story, their childhood is very important.
Yep.
And why they became an entrepreneur. Like when I was a child, I never thought I would be a business owner, but I always wanted to change the world. I wanted to do something big and impactful. I saw the struggles of, being a first generation is always difficult. You see how hard they work. And so you get that work ethic, which I think is the backbone of being successful. So you see that work ethic. You never feel like you're working as hard as they worked, even though it's comparable, if not more, in technology, of course. And then you see in science, they came here for a better life like everybody does, for a cleaner work life as a medical professional. And I had a very big family, so I was really into that social aspect, and that has translated a lot into the business and how we really treat all the photographers and all of our clients like they are our family. We have more than 10,000 businesses.
Wow.
Platform that are subscribers, and over 13,000 photographers from over 150 countries. So that empathy and that understanding of people and what they're trying to achieve and helping them do that is very important. And I think the lens that your childhood, and I was always very creative. I was always hiding and drawing and writing poems and making things. So technology and building a company is a very creative experience, and it gets fueled from those childhood ambitions.
Nice. And so talk to me a little bit about that, childhood, when you were growing up. What made you want to study technology? What was that first love? Because you said that you were getting your master's in that, but what started from when you were young or high school age that made you realize you had an interest in this field versus pursuing being a doctor like your parents did, or being an artist or whatever other passions you could have pursued, but what made you decide to go with technology?
It's interesting because I'm in technology, but I'm also in photography. So on the photography side, my mom is obsessed with taking photos. She's a great photographer. We'd find ourselves sleeping and she'd have a camera or a video in our face. It really made me understand the importance of documenting. I have a theory. It's because they're all their photos burned down when they were younger.
Oh, so man.
Those. So I have a theory. That's why she's so into it. But I have that love of images. And then the love of technology came because I was studying politics. So I had my undergrad degree, and I got it from George Washington in DC. And I went and worked in the U.S. Congress, and I worked, and I was just trying to understand how the world works and how I can do it. And then when I was discovering this, there was the Arab Spring happened, Black Lives Matter movement, the Venezuela protests. And I started to see, wow, like actually technology is like this new platform for politics, and it's giving people an opportunity to like democratize their feelings so people can see them and people can understand them. And like, wow, isn't that so powerful and awesome that we can now learn about the world in that visual way. So then that's when I realized, like, if I'm going to dedicate my life to something as big and as big as what I had thought in my head, which was this like political dream, that technology will take me way far, more far than politics would, in terms of the impact it could have on the world and the skills that I could learn for this like next generation that's coming up. And when you look around, I was like, why are there was no woman in technology? There's no alternative opinions. You're talking about AI. We have AI on our platform now. AI training sets are built by humans, so you also need that input of multiple opinions and different types of people. So I think it's the fusion of the tech and the photography and images that really have made this like really powerful passion of mine, and what has allowed me to work on in such a like long period of time on something.
Nice. And so now, you got your master's. You said you were working for the government for a little bit. So what did you do after that? Like, what happened after you got your master's, but right before you started Scopio? Because like you said, you saw these things going on in the world. Yeah. What urged you to say, I need to take a better look at this and I need to do something about this?
So I remember I was in like the lobby of the School of International Public Affairs at Columbia, and I was looking at the TV screen, and there was these photos of the Arab Spring and these pictures of like very powerful images. And I was like, what if I just like organized these photos so people knew where they were coming from? Because there was so much confusion about these images that were on Twitter. So I was like, what if I just like created something where I could like find all the hashtags and then put all the photos together, and then people could see what country they were coming from. So there was some dumb pitch competition, and not dumb.
I was about to say.
It was like a small kind of thing. And I pitched it, and I don't even think I won. Like I can't even remember. Maybe I did win. I don't know. So I pitched it, and I was like exhilarated. Like I was like, wow, like I got to create this presentation. Everyone thought it was a good idea. And then I was like, well, I don't really know how to do any of this. So how do I start? And I was like kind of bored with all my classes at that time. At that point, I was like, none of these are going to make me awesome. This will make me awesome. So I started to discover and talk to people and figure out the technological aspect of what I wanted to do. And it was really important. That summer, I got an internship at a seed stage venture firm. And it was randomly in Istanbul, but they actually built products and they invested in people. So I got, at the same time, I went to Turkey. I don't know like anyone there, like the language, nothing, like they don't speak English really. And but I got to learn like both the product stuff and the investment side. So I got to see like what do you have to do in order to make this happen? I would visit portfolio companies. I saw them, and the founder of the fund would give me their background and explain to me. And so then when I went back for my second year of my master's, I was like, okay, I want to build a company. And I made everything happen for myself. I changed everything that I could in order to do that. Moved to all the classes I could to the business school. Got really involved in the tech scene, and just like took every minute that I had that year to use all the resources around me to help me launch this concept, which at the time was just about protest photos.
Nice. And so about what year is this that this is launching?
This is like 2014, so 7 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. And so now that you have the knowledge, you got that experience in working at that like investment firm, the VC folks, and now you're back, you're building on top of your idea. What's happening in your brain? What's happening around you? What are people saying? How are you feeling about it? What's going on? What's this adventure like?
I mean, I was 25 years old when I had this. So I was pretty naive. I remember reading this article in Forbes about I think Forbes or something, about the founders of Airbnb, and how like Airbnb could like help you, like selling your house could help you like get income or something. So I ended up renting out my apartment, living with my friend, so I could like pay for my LLC setup, for my legal setup. So I did this all without anybody knowing, and I was just like, oh, this is like so cool, like being an entrepreneur. But then I didn't realize that feeling, that like of not having resources, exists throughout the journey. So you're always like having to make sacrifices like that. So in the beginning, it's fun, kind of, when you start, and then you're like, oh, this actually needs so much more effort. And but for me, it was a lot of like the learning and talking to people was really fun in the first year, 2 years, and then it became like really real, like when you understood the landscape, how the whole ecosystem works, and then you need to fight to be in that, and fight is exhausting and difficult. Not many people, that's the point where everybody gives up, I'm convinced, like at that point. But I was lucky in that when I had graduated, I had the business plan. I had won this innovation entrepreneurship program. So I had like spent a whole, I think, semester working on my business plan with 12 other companies.
Nice.
And then they had this, and we had a big presentation in the end, and everyone was like, you did such a good job. And then I was like, okay, great, somebody's going to give me $1 million. And they were teaching us to go out and raise $1 million. So all my material was like, give me $1 million. And then all these people would sit and like laugh at me. And then just like, it was humiliating. And like the way they teach that is just so wrong, like to people, like nobody's going to give you $1 million. You know? So, so I ended up joining something called Columbia Startup Lab, which is a space in Lower Manhattan. And they gave 2 companies from each school within the university, like workspace for a year. So I got to like kind of play it off like, oh, I was still in this school environment. And that helped me, again, like extend the life of my dreams. And that time I said, okay, if it doesn't work out, actually, I never thought if it doesn't work out, I just kept going. Like, I don't think I ever was like, oh, I had a backup plan.
And that's good. Cause you know, a lot of time people say, you know, if you have like a plan A, a plan B, like too many like backup plans, then you're not really investing in, you know, making sure that this plan works. And that doesn't mean that you can't pivot it or change it or evolve it, but that means you're committed to making this plan A work. So I really love that. And the fact that, you know, realizing that you had to be resourceful, you had to tap into resources and think outside of the box. Like you said, renting out your apartment, staying at the Columbia Startup Lab, and then using what you had to get where you wanted to go. So over the time that you're building that, like, what was it like? And trying now to expand your team, like you said, you know, after that 2-year mark is where people start to fall off, because it's like, this is fun when you're like figuring out, but then it's like, oh no, this is real. You have bills, you need to eat food, like human food. So what was that like in that transition and like growing your team and now like making money from the product, right? You didn't get the $1 million, but like, what did that process and that journey look like and feel like?
Well, the issue was that I had this like initial concept. It was called Protestify, and it was about organizing and feeding these images. I raised $32,000 on Kickstarter.
Nice.
Website. The second we built the website, it didn't work. Like, so it was, I had spent a year basically doing this Kickstarter. We put the website up, it was trash. And when you had to build your own web builders. And like, I feel it's still my like biggest, like when I think about that, because it's just like a year of your life and then it doesn't work. And it's just like, but that momentum and that whole experience was like, you know what, like at this point I had met my business partner, who I'll tell you about, who she just made Forbes 30 under 30.
Congrats.
I'm proud of her. I missed the mark, but I urge every entrepreneur to start earlier so that you can try to make it. For me and her, it was like a dream come true, and we had no reason to be on it. We didn't know anyone. It was just one of those things that was just amazing to get. But I had I had basically wanted a designer or somebody that knew how to like build products. So I went to this conference at Parsons, like I signed myself up and I went. And I met one of the directors of the design program and I said, I'm building this app and I need a designer. I like literally didn't have an app. I was so convinced like I was going to make it happen. So I sent him an email and he sent it out, and then she called me and she was like, I love your concept. I'm a photographer and she's doing interactive design, like technology and design. So she's like more of a front end. And she's like, I want to help you. So she had a year left of school and she started to help work. And then when she finished school, I was like, you're not getting a job. We're going to do this. And we thought, you know, why just these photos? Let's make a place where all the world images live, where anybody can participate. And that was really, you started to see like the cheesiness of stock photography, the kind of like racial issues that and fakeness and woman eating salad. And we're like, if we get this is going to be a really big deal because every website on earth, everything you're seeing is photos, and it's only going to continue. So we could be that place. So then we launched Scopio, which stands for Scope It Out, and it's like a microscope into social media. We see ourselves as that bridge, and then that's when things started to get very hard.
Yeah, so let's dive right into that. What are the hard parts? You know, now it's getting real. So what did that look like? That feel like you it's a team of two. It's not just you by yourself. People are like interested in this thing. You're really building something. What was that like? What was the hardness?
The thing is, people weren't interested in it. Like when we created, like when I had Protestify, it was a cute concept, so everybody was patting me on the back. But then when I had this like big tech vision, like, no, I want to have the next Facebook, the next Google, a big company. Everyone was like, no, like you're not qualified. You don't know what you're doing. You're not qualified. You don't have this. You don't have that. Like I was getting everything thrown at me. And then I was like, New York started to become colder and more difficult to like have these like interactions. And so it was like, I remember even there was like this one guy that like I really respected, and he was like, was telling my friend also, she had a company and now she's super successful and she's raised like millions of dollars and has a really big business. And so she was like, why can't we raise money for our company? And he tells her, look at this other girl, like let's call her Michelle. He's like, look at Michelle. Michelle has a great lifestyle business. She made $60,000 last year. And we were like, he thinks we went to Columbia to make $60,000 a year. That's how, like, so then I was like, when things like that happen, you are like, you want to prove them wrong so bad. And you're like, why can't I do this? So that's when you really have to be like self-motivating. And then there's all these like small breaks that happen in between that allow you to get to the next milestone, but they're not the breaks that you expect. So, and they're much smaller than you expect. And that's how I was able to get through those, like that time period.
Yeah. And it's like, and I hope that person that told you guys that, you know, has been like shunned or isn't like, you know, at the top or doing great, because it sucks to have somebody look at you and based on your appearance and just kind of where, you know, maybe even where you come from or your gender or your race to say that you shouldn't have a dream this big, like just settle down. But, you know, a guy that looks like him, you know, comes into the room and he's like, yeah, bro, let's make $1 billion or whatever it may be. And so people don't realize, like, you know, some people are strong enough, like, you know, yourself and I and like a few people in our networks are strong enough to kind of, you know, push past that. Other people have been shut down or it's taken a while. And that I've had an experience like that before where somebody said something and I just felt like, maybe I am an imposter. Like we already have enough imposter syndrome in our brains and in ourselves. And then for somebody else to say, hey, you're dreaming too big. You're trying too hard. You want to go after something that you'll never get. Like just sit down and just be cute somewhere, right? Like just go have a fitness brand. That is very demeaning. And like, disrespectful. And right, we're recording this in Women's History Month, and so just realizing like how far we've come, and like how far how direct and actionable people have been. Like, you're not saying that to that person. If you do X, you will be called out, you will be canceled, you will be deleted, like no one will come to your stuff. And so just like showing that in the media. And I think when I went onto the platform of Scopio, I really saw like a reflection of kind of the world, right? I saw different people from different races, genders, backgrounds, wearing different styles, clothing, and it was just like a really beautiful experience. And is that kind of like your vision for Scopio, and like where it's going, and like once you kind of got over those humps, was that something that kind of helped you continue to grow? If you could talk to that a bit, that like diversity aspect.
Yeah, I think two things. The first is the self-management and care, and being your own like cheerleader is like a it's like a learned, it's like needs practice. Like,
yep.
You're not like I was always very confident on like public speaking, like when I was younger, and then you think that carries in, and it doesn't. It actually needs a lot of coaching. Like, I have a business coach now, and it needs a lot of coaching and reading. Like, I read a lot of books about leadership, and time management is very important. Emotional management is very important. Your health is very important. Once you get that, then you like really start to become stronger, because you're always gonna have like haters, and sometimes they're very big haters, and sometimes they're very important people, and you want to believe them because they are who they are. Or it could be something very small, like I'll get a customer email with the customer being really unhappy, or a review online, and it'll ruin my whole day.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, like I have thousands of people that write me nice emails, like congratulations, great product, your images built my business. I had an empty blog, and now it's like, and then you just like get one little small thing, and you're like, oh, and it drags you down. But then if you can figure out how to like be better at that, that's how you can play the marathon that is entrepreneurship. And like I had burnout, and every entrepreneur I know does, where you're sprinting, you're trying, it's not working, then you burn out, and then something happens, and then you get your energy again. And then you start to learn, like, no, that's not the way to do it. You have to just steady wins the race.
100%, like 1,000%, because it's gonna happen. You have to pace yourself. And I did feel that too, like when certain times where my business would be up, I'm like, yay, cloud 10, and then certain times it's down, I'm like, oh my god, I'm terrible. And it's like you could get 10 great comments in one day, and it's like that one comment will kind of get you down. And like I slowly learned to like disconnect myself from it. It's like, that's not me that they're talking about, it's just how the system works. And sometimes my process and my platform is crappy. Okay, that's or maybe it's not going to affect you the way that I want it to, and that's okay. So now we're I want to start talking about your misadventure, right? We talked a little bit about a few, but is there a specific story of a time that you'd like to share throughout this business journey that was like super unexpected, super curveball, and like kind of what you did to move past that?
I think like the biggest one in my business life was we went through a massive pivot, like my lights are off, about like a year and a half ago. And basically it's when the API changes of Facebook, like they stopped allowing like you to search on hashtags, and we would search on hashtags and send people messages and get the rights for photos that way. And we always wanted to build like a ready-to-made marketplace, but I was really obsessed, and still am, with AI and the advancements in organizing the data. So basically it was like a search engine. You'd search by hashtag, you get the results from Instagram, then you send Georgie a message, and you're like, great photo, can I use it for my marketing? And so that's how the Scopio platform operated. We went through 500 startups with that idea. I had raised a few $100,000 on that idea. And then, I mean, I've raised a lot more than that now, but at that point, like, significant. And that's also like another journey by itself. But then I was like, I can't be reliant on Mark Zuckerberg for my business. Like, I need to make sure that we can like grow, and the costs are very expensive running that. So then we had this idea, and we had this customer that were like basically like, if you can just get all these photos ready and people can use them instead of having to message the people, that would, and all the customers were telling me this. Like I was like tone deaf because everybody was like, this is too much work. We just want the photos ready. So I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to get all these people to come to my website. Like, why would they do that? And now we get thousands of images a day.
Nice.
But so we basically had no money left, like zero. Like I didn't have any money for myself, and I didn't have any money for my business. And I was like, we finished 500 startups. I was in San Francisco. My business partner moved back to New York because her family was here. And so I was like, nothing is holding this together. And then it was like basically like the end of that concept. So, but this is where the vision always keeps you alive, because our goal was to make the images accessible for everybody and to bring the world's images out. Okay. So it doesn't really matter to me like what that product looks like. It's like, are you achieving your vision or are you not? So that's when we did it. Like we set up a website, we set up a submission page. We went and we messaged everybody on Instagram like, hey, come sell your photos to us. And then 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, 1,000 people, like, and then all these countries, and people were submitting. And then we moved all of our AI to that piece of the business. And it was really scary because it was like everything I had worked on for like 3-4 years basically became nothing in like a day. And this was after a whole rebuild. We had to rebuild the technology in a year before. And then, so we were like, you know what, we ended up using Shopify. We put all of our photos on Shopify, and then we really leaned down the business. And then it's been growing ever since. And it was really scary. And when we did it, we got a customer, we got an investor, a bigger investor. We got 2 actually investors within a month. So I went from being like basically bankrupt to getting 2 investors and like my biggest check that I got from a customer. And it was like,
and that's how entrepreneurship works, guys that are out there listening. You could be, and they say it's like, when you hit rock bottom, like the only way from there is like up, like there's no other more down to go, like the only way is up, like, and that's sometimes it takes
more down. Like I always thought my downs were before that, and then I was like, oh shit, this is worse.
And sometimes they come like that was a true misadventure. Sometimes you just don't see it coming, and then like you don't see it coming when it gets all crazy and goes down, and then the come up is even worse, not something that you see coming, but that's meant to be a part of the journey. That's like the learning experience, and just understanding and having a set of values that allow you to be, conscious and focused no matter when it's like the downtime or the uptime, but just saying, okay, this isn't working, or this, what should I do? Or this is working, what should I do to make it keep working or maintain it or grow it? And those are the key like things that you need to think about, because overnight, and it's like a lot of folks coming on the show, and overnight failure is more likely than overnight success, right? That's the thing. A person came on, she told us overnight, literally a law was made, and in less than 24 hours, she lost 70% of her business, right? And overnight, this thing that you were building, it felt like it all disappeared, but then a few days later, it started building up back. And that's really the adventure and the misadventures of entrepreneurship. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about, your team since then, and like what you guys have been working on, and like kind of where Scopio is now, and where do you want to see it in the next like year, 2 years?
Yeah. So our goal is to like democratize the world's images and make them accessible. For many, like back in time, there was only a few businesses using images. Now everybody needs them for their personal brand, to build their businesses, and I'm sure your audience is a lot of them. But then when you go to buy them, they're either like too expensive or like too fake. And then on the other side, you have like people all over the world are getting so good at taking images. Like you look, the 7-year-old is like mastering a camera and they just sit on our phones. But why do we have to like stare at these terrible images when everybody has these great ones?
Mm-hmm.
And then also like they call Gen Z the generation of the side hustle. Everybody is trying to make some money. And if you have art, you should be able to like explore that artistic path and make money from it. So our goal is to grow as big as we can, and with both of these objectives in mind. We have 200,000 images on the platform now. We will in the next few months. These are all commercial images. In the next few months, we'll be releasing our first editorial section, which I'm extremely like. When it goes up, I might cry because it's like how I started the business, and it's always been in my heart. And I wanted a place where people can submit their powerful images. So that will be going up, and I hope to see a lot of people's like opinions through those images. And we've been working on AI in terms of search suggestions and in terms of processing images. And I'm really excited about that. I talked a little bit briefly about it, but I think it's important that women are in AI and that you have your own lens. Because I look at image tagging, it's completely wrong. Like the way the training sets are built, like it just is not representative. So even the smallest things like tagging, which you wouldn't think about, have been built in these like archaic times. So I think Scopio has a lot to offer there from our perspective. And then give the world these images. So whether you're in Brazil or Nigeria, you can find images of people that look like you and build your business and have fun and be creative. And you can save images, create boards, you can create these lookbooks. And we have on our site a $29 a month plan, so unlimited. So if you're a small business, that's like amazing.
Yeah, that's literally a gold mine. So we're coming to the end of our interview. So the question I like to ask in the end is if the audience got nothing from this interview at all, right? Which I know is definitely not true. They had to have gotten a lot of different gems. But what's the one piece of information or advice that you'd like to leave the audience with so that they could take with them? It could be, a thing that they should do when they go home, something that they should always remember in business, something that they should consider while they're growing, just whatever piece of advice you'd like to leave them with.
I think number one, networking and meeting as many people. They say the impossible is just a phone call away, one more call away. So the more people you know, the more you can help solve your problems as an entrepreneur. And that takes a lot of work. And the second one is self-care. For sure, you have to really believe in yourself and invest in yourself. They call it the hero's journey, entrepreneurship. You're the hero. Like, don't expect anyone else to be your hero. You are the hero. And number one, if you invest in yourself, you'll be successful no matter what. And that is so crazy that it's so hard to do that. Nobody taught us that like the world is not built like that. The world is built in another way. So that means reading. That means health and wellness. That means talking to people, caring for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Christina. Guys, definitely check out Scopio. And Christina, this information will be in the show notes as well as in the comment section of the video. And follow her on social. Go get some beautiful images. Scopio is amazing. Like, I went on there, I was just like taken aback. And thank you again so much for being here. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Doing the Most. Catch us here next week, same time, same place. If you can't wait, head on over to doingthemost.xyz to stay connected. Until next time, keep on doing.